Week 11 of the fantasy football season, and here's top 15 quarterbacks. I'm ranking this week number 1, Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Patrick Mahomes, I know he had one bad week a few weeks ago under the weather versus the Denver Broncos, but this week here, Super Bowl rematch, Monday Night Football coming off the bye week, I think Mahomes has one of the better games he's had all season. And this Philly defense, they've been picked apart in the secondary the last few games versus the Commanders, and then the Dallas Cowboys. Number 2, staying in the same game, Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Jalen Hurts, he's having a great season once again, MVP caliber season, and actually the favorite to win it right now. So this week here, Super Bowl rematch. We know last season in the Super Bowl he had a monster performance as Jalen Hurts, and it just wasn't enough to win that game. So this week here, you know, the juices are flowing, revenge is on his mind, and also with Philadelphia coming off the bye, this is going to be a monster shootout, in my opinion. Number 3, Tua of the Miami Dolphins. So Tua and the Dolphins coming off a bye as well. Tua, we know, one of the better quarterbacks in fantasy football this season. Him and Tyreek Hill playing on another level. And versus a Vegas Raider defense that really can't stop anyone in the secondary and has given up a bunch of points this season. I think Tua once again goes out there and has a good game. Number 4, Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys. You want to talk about someone playing on the level, it's definitely Dak Prescott the last 4 games for this Cowboy team. After early in the season, a lot of pedestrian underneath throwing and just scared to throw an interception was the way Dak was playing, but he's let loose the last 4 games, and him and CeeDee Lamb are playing at an elite level. Lamb 3 games in a row with 10 catches, 150 yards plus in all these games. And this week in a good matchup at the Panthers, one of the worst teams in the league, even though it definitely could be a trap game for this Cowboy team and tough out of the gate if they don't take it seriously. But if Dak is playing with the mentality like he has over the last month of the season, once again, I think you get a big game out of him after the last 3 weeks, 30-plus fantasy points from him each and every week. And last week, over 45 fantasy points. Number 5, C.J. Stroud of the Houston Texans. So C.J. Stroud's taking the league by storm, and he's a Rookie of the Year favorite right now as well. And this week, a good matchup with the Cardinals coming to town. So C.J. Stroud getting everyone involved in the offense. Noah Brown's been breaking out the last few weeks. Tank Dell having a great rookie season. Dalton Schultz. Also, Nico Collins possibly could return in this game if he's coming off with the calf injury. So spreading the football around. Great poise in the pocket. He's playing like a 10-year veteran out there. Only 2 interceptions and 16 touchdowns this year. And this week with a good matchup versus Arizona, I think he has a great game once again. Number 6, Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. So Josh Allen, the turnovers have been a major concern now this season. And over the last few seasons, over 90 turnovers last 5 years for Allen. So this week here, he versus his kryptonite in the New York Jets. And in week 1, they caused 4 turnovers in that game. We know he's a gunslinger, has a huge arm, but that's where he finds himself throwing into mistakes and forcing the football at times. So this week, like I said, versus kryptonite in the New York Jets, he's still a top quarterback in fantasy football, no doubt about it. But I had to bump him down the rankings with guys like Prescott, Stroud playing on another level over the last few weeks. And Allen with the tougher matchup. Number 7, Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. So Joe Burrow, the last month of the season, he's gotten healthy, and him and Jamar Chase are on the same wavelength once again, making big plays and explosive plays. I know last week 2 tough picks were thrown by Joe Burrow, but he's still putting up fantasy points. And this week here, one of the better Thursday night football games you're going to see all season with the Bengals, that division rival, the Baltimore Ravens. I think this could be a mini shootout. Joe Burrow, you know, in these big type of games, he usually come through over the last few seasons, and obviously leading this Bengal team to a Super Bowl appearance a few years ago. So this week, I think Cincinnati's offense keeps it going once again, and Burrow has a good game. Number 8, Lamar Jackson of the mentioned Baltimore Ravens. So Lamar Jackson, he's been a hit-or-miss quarterback, believe it or not, this season in fantasy football. I know the numbers are great. I know the rushing yards are great and all that, but there's some games where he just hasn't shown up and really put up fantasy points. So this week here, Thursday Night Football, we know these games are usually high scoring no matter who the teams are on, besides last week's game where it was one of the worst games you're going to see all season with the Bears and the Carolina Panthers. But anyway, Lamar Jackson, him and Odell Beckham are getting going. Mark Andrews, he's been healthy, making plays at an elite level once again. And this week here, it's been a great game between these two teams. And I think Lamar rises to the occasion. Number 9, Justin Herbert of the Los Angeles Chargers. So Justin Herbert, we know he's one of the better younger quarterbacks in the league. We know he's got a big arm, and we know he could be a gunslinger at times as well. And this week here, tougher matchup where it's always tough, no matter how good or bad the Green Bay Packers are, to go into Lambeau Field and put up a decent game. And of course, obviously the time change as well. But right now, as long as he's got Keenan Allen, who's banged up in the lineup, which he's going to play most likely with the shoulder, and obviously Austin Eckler out of the backfield, I think Justin Herbert, once again, he's going to have a good game. He had a bad game, I know, a few weeks ago versus that New York Jet defense, but that's the Jets, and I think he could take advantage of Green Bay in this one. Number 10, Jared Goff for the Detroit Lions. So this Lion offense hitting on all cylinders. Amon-Ra St. Brown, what a season. Sam Laporta, a great rookie year. And Jahmyr Gibbs, the last 3-4 weeks as well, has really emerged. And we know already coming out of college, he's one of the best receiving backs in the league. So this week with a great matchup versus a Chicago Bear team that really hasn't stopped anyone all season. I think Goff once again is going to pick apart this defense. And it was tough to put him at 10, but a lot of good quarterbacks with good matchups this week. And quarterback position, the last 3-4 weeks, guys have stepped up and definitely moved up the ranking board. So right now, I know it might be a little low on the list at 10, but like I said, these other guys are hard to pass up right now with their matchups and their play. Number 11, Sam Howell. Number 11, Sam Howell of the Washington Commanders. So another quarterback who's come out of nowhere this season was Howell. We know at the end of last year, he played some of those games and started for the Washington Commanders, but he really didn't do much. But this season, only 2 bad games this year. Week 2 it was versus Buffalo, and then Week 7, believe it or not, versus Giant team where they lost 14-7. But Sam Howell's a good quarterback. He's another guy that spreads the football out, a gunslinger, has a good arm, big rifle, and he really knows how to get the football in places where the defense really can. I know he turns the football over at times, is Sam Howell, but this week here in a game that the Commanders are trying to stay in the hunt, even though it's a little bit of a long shot, I think he bounces back versus a Giant team that had his number in Week 7, and he's a top 12 option at 11. Number 12, Kyler Murray of the Arizona Cardinals. So Kyler Murray, it was a nice return for him coming off the ACL injury last week and leading this team to victory versus the Atlanta Falcons. This week, a tougher matchup at Houston that's playing great football, and their defense has stepped up a little bit over the last few weeks as well, creating turnovers. But Murray got a great tight end in Trey McBride, who had another monster game last week. Hollywood Brown, Michael Wilson, who I think could be a solid receiver in this league. So this week in a potential type of shootout with these two teams, I got Murray having a solid performance again. 13, Joshua Dobbs of the Minnesota Vikings. So Joshua Dobbs, he's been the talk of the NFL the last couple weeks here after he got traded to the Minnesota Vikings after Kirk Cousins went down. And then in the first quarter in that Week 9 game versus the Falcons, the rookie Hall went down with injury, and Dobbs had to come in after 3 days only being with the team and not knowing the playbook and stuff and leading them to victory. And then last week, a good ball game once again versus the New Orleans Saints. So this week here, tougher matchup going into Denver, hostile environment, obviously. Sunday Night Football, where, you know, the crowd's going to be charged up. Denver's been playing great football the last few weeks, beating Kansas City in Week 8, and then beating Buffalo on Monday Night Football with a buzzer-beating field goal in that one. But Joshua Dobbs, with his running ability and just his instinct, better offense over there in Minnesota, where he was with Arizona early in the year. I think Joshua Dobbs, once again, has a good performance and is a startable quarterback for the remainder of the season, especially with his rushing ability. 14, Brock Purdy of the San Francisco 49ers. So Brock Purdy's been a solid quarterback pretty much the majority of the season. I know the Niners, they had a bad hiccup after going 5-0 to start the season, losing 3 straight. But Purdy last week and this Niner team made a statement, I believe, going for 296 yards, 3 touchdowns. Great weapons, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, obviously. Deebo Samuel back in the lineup, found the end zone. And this week, it's a good matchup versus a weak Tampa secondary coming to town. So Purdy, as long as he's not turning the football over and making the right throws and the right plays in the scheme here for Shanahan, I think he has a good game. In the 15th and final quarterback, I'm ranking Russell Wilson of the Denver Broncos. So Wilson, he's been playing way better football this season than last. Last year, he got in great shape in the offseason, and it's showing now. Russell Wilson's making some of those great highlight plays we've seen him make with the Seahawks, keeping plays alive in the pocket, hitting players on the run, and he's taking the checkdowns as well. He's not forcing like he was last season, and obviously this is a run-first team over the last few weeks with Javonte Williams leading the charge. But Russell Wilson, he's making the throws. Him and Courtland Sutton have been on the same page. He's taking what the defense is giving him, and this week a good matchup versus Minnesota coming to town, where we know their secondary isn't all that great, and they've given up points over the last few weeks to quarterbacks like Taylor Heineke and even Jameis Winston coming in relief last week. So that's a top 15 quarterbacks I'm ranking here for Week 11 of the fantasy football season.